Before this story ends, a mother will collapse to her knees in tears, and a billionaire doctor will stand speechless. But the most shocking part: the miracle didn't come from a world-famous hospital. It came from a single dad who had nothing left to lose. If you love powerful, emotional stories like this, make sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel Shadow Tales, because stories like this remind us that sometimes the greatest miracles come from the most unexpected people. Emily Carter was 7 years old when the doctors told her mother something that shattered her world forever. Emily would never walk again. The diagnosis came from the best specialists money could buy. The billionaire-funded neurology center in the city had run every test imaginable. MRIs, nerve scans, muscle studies, every machine confirmed the same cruel truth. Emily's legs simply wouldn't respond. Her nervous system was damaged beyond repair. For her mother Laura, those words felt like a life sentence. She tried everything. Expensive therapies. Experimental treatments. Months in rehabilitation centers. Even consultations with world-renowned doctors whose waiting lists stretched for years. Each appointment ended the same way, with sympathetic smiles and quiet apologies. Nothing worked. Slowly, hope began to fade. But hope sometimes hides in the most unlikely places. Across town lived Daniel Reyes, a single father raising his son alone after his wife passed away. Daniel wasn't rich. In fact, most months he barely managed to pay rent. But what he did have was patience, determination, and a heart that refused to give up on people. Daniel worked as a maintenance technician at the very hospital where Emily had once been treated. He spent his days fixing broken lights, repairing wheelchairs, and quietly observing the endless stream of patients coming and going. Over time, he noticed something the doctors didn't seem to focus on enough: movement. The tiny reactions people's bodies made when they were encouraged differently. One afternoon, Daniel saw Laura struggling to lift Emily's wheelchair into a taxi outside the hospital. Emily's small hands gripped the armrests, while her legs hung motionless. Daniel rushed over to help. Laura thanked him politely, clearly exhausted. As he lifted the chair, Daniel noticed something unusual. When Emily laughed at something her mother said, her foot twitched, just slightly. It was so small most people wouldn't even notice. But Daniel did. That tiny movement stayed in his mind all night. If her foot could twitch, maybe her body wasn't completely disconnected. Maybe her muscles just needed the right trigger. Daniel wasn't a doctor. He had no medical degree. But he had something else: curiosity and stubborn belief. The next day he saw Laura again outside the hospital. Nervously, he told her about what he noticed. At first, she almost brushed him off. After all, what could a maintenance worker possibly know that billionaire doctors didn't? But there was something sincere in Daniel's voice, something hopeful she hadn't heard in months. Reluctantly, she agreed to let him try something simple. Daniel built a small homemade exercise device using spare hospital equipment and parts he found in the maintenance room. Nothing fancy. Just a system of soft straps, gentle resistance, and rhythmic movement designed to slowly wake the muscles. Every evening after work, he helped Emily practice tiny movements. No pressure. No promises. Just patience. Days passed. Then weeks. And one evening, something unbelievable happened. Emily's toes moved. Not a twitch. A movement. Laura froze. Daniel stared in disbelief. But somewhere across the city, inside a luxurious office high above the skyline, the billionaire doctor who had once dismissed Emily's case was about to witness something that would challenge everything he believed. And he wouldn't believe it until he saw it with his own eyes. 3 months after Daniel started helping Emily, something extraordinary was happening, something no doctor had predicted. At first, it was only small improvements. Emily could wiggle her toes for a few seconds. Then she could lift her foot slightly when Daniel guided the exercise straps. The muscles that had once seemed lifeless were slowly waking up, one movement at a time. Laura watched every session with cautious hope. She had been disappointed too many times before to believe too quickly. But every week Emily grew stronger. The homemade device Daniel built wasn't magical, it simply encouraged repeated movement, patience, and confidence. Daniel treated every improvement like a victory, celebrating with Emily like a proud coach. Word of Emily's progress began spreading quietly through the hospital staff. Nurses whispered about the little girl who had started moving again. Therapists became curious. Soon the story reached someone who dismissed it immediately. Dr. Victor Langston. Dr. Langston was not just any neurologist. He was one of the wealthiest and most respected specialists in the country. His research center had cutting-edge technology worth millions. When Emily was first diagnosed, he had personally reviewed her scans and concluded that recovery was impossible. So when someone mentioned that a maintenance worker had somehow helped her regain movement, he laughed. "Impossible," he said confidently. But curiosity has a strange way of growing. Eventually, one of the therapists insisted Dr. Langston come see for himself. Reluctantly, he agreed, mostly to prove everyone wrong. The evening he arrived at the therapy room, Daniel was guiding Emily through her usual exercises. Laura sat nearby, watching anxiously. The billionaire doctor stood in the doorway with folded arms, clearly skeptical. "Show me," he said. Daniel didn't argue or explain. He simply nodded to Emily. "Ready?" he asked gently. Emily grinned. Slowly, with effort, she pushed her feet against the resistance straps. Her legs trembled as the muscles engaged. Then something incredible happened. Emily lifted both legs slightly off the support bar. The room went silent. Dr. Langston stepped forward, stunned. He watched carefully, studying every movement like a scientist witnessing something impossible. Then Daniel helped Emily stand with support. For the first time in years, Emily stood. Her legs shook, but they held. Laura gasped, covering her mouth. Tears streamed down her face as she realized what she was seeing. Her daughter, her little girl who was never supposed to walk again, was standing. And then Emily took a step. Just one tiny step. But it was enough. Laura collapsed into tears, overwhelmed by the miracle unfolding in front of her. The room filled with emotion as even the hospital staff struggled to process what had happened. Dr. Langston, the billionaire doctor who had once declared Emily's case hopeless, slowly removed his glasses. For the first time in his career, he had no explanation. He looked at Daniel. "How?" he asked quietly. Daniel shrugged with a humble smile. "I just believed her body wasn't done trying." In that moment, the billionaire doctor realized something his expensive machines had never measured. Determination, patience, and belief. And sometimes, that's more powerful than all the technology in the world. Emily's journey wasn't over yet. She still had months of therapy ahead. But the impossible had already happened. The girl who couldn't walk had taken her first step, thanks to a single dad who refused to believe the story was over. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to Shadow Tales so you never miss the next powerful story. Because sometimes, the greatest heroes are the ones the world never expects.